No one told you to open Adobe Bridge. Literally no one told you to do that. Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to Bugs Need Heroes, a podcast where an artist and an entomologist team up to illustrate the inspiring abilities of insects by creating bug-themed superheroes. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Kelly.
Producer Derek. I don't even know if there's any cats.
Zotz. I think Zotz is here.
Okay, producer Derek and Zotz are also here. Before we get started creating this bug-inspired hero, what's up bugging you, Kelly?
Oh, thank you, Amanda. I just got back from the sunny yet cool Bahamas with friend of the pod, Dr. Ped, and a bunch of students. Ped is teaching the tropical ecology course at Monmouth University, and they needed another professor as a chaperone because we had like 13 students. So I said, yes.
Go to the Bahamas for work.
Yeah.
Send me to the Bahamas work. I'll gladly
Yeah,
do
my
that.
parents were like, that's a thing you can do. And I said, I guess so.
I mean, how strong is the temptation to just make classes like coursework
In
that's
great
set in a
places.
location you want to go? Like, unfortunately, we have to go to the Swiss Alps to study this. I
Well,
don't know what to tell you.
it does
We
have
just
to
have to
be
go.
approved by the department, and it should make sense for, so this is for the marine and environmental biology and policy program. So it works.
So Swiss
Yeah,
Alps are
maybe
out.
not Alps. But we had a great time. We did some free diving for conch, lots of snorkeling. I swam within like 2 feet of a 7-foot Caribbean reef shark. Very cool. Very, very cool.
My gosh. Sharks scare me. I think they're really cool, but I also think that I don't belong where they belong and that we should respectfully distance ourselves from one another.
Admire
You
from
stay
afar.
there, I stay here. Yes, exactly. Because here's the thing, I don't blame the shark. I don't blame the shark. I'm where I'm not supposed to be,
Yeah, it is
clearly.
their home.
If the if
Yes.
if the shark takes a bite out of me, that's
It's
my
your fault.
mistake.
Yeah.
He's doing shark things. He's doing exactly
She's
as his
living her
schedule for
best
the
shark
day
life,
was laid
and
out.
your arm is in the way. That's how it goes sometimes.
Correct.
So, but
Correct.
it was a great trip. I got a little sunburned because, as the listeners know, I am a pasty ghost, no matter how much sunblock I put
Yeah.
on. But it was great.
Were you finally warm
The water was not warm.
beautiful locale?
I
What?
had to
Really?
wear,
That surprises me.
the last day I wore wetsuit pants because I was getting really cold. And I'm not a cold person. I'm usually warm no matter what. So totally worth it. But
Yeah.
Amanda, even better than what's bugging me.
Not
So
better.
much better. I'm so excited for you.
I have finally caved to the pressure, and, we have gotten a cat.
Yes.
We are now cat owners.
Everyone on the pod
Her name
has
is
a cat
Marvel.
now.
Oh, we're a cat positive pod now. Her name is, Captain Marvel, AKA Carol Danvers, AKA just Marvel. We just call her Marvel. She gets along great with the kids. The kids have loved her so far. She's very, very soft, way softer than our previous cat, although our previous cat was kind of bad at being a cat, so he's an unfair judge. My only thing is I'm not sure of her body language yet, just because I don't know her very well. So sometimes I feel like she's getting overwhelmed by the kids, so I like interrupt it. But then she's like, "Thanks for interrupting. I
I
was
was being
enjoying
pets.
that." And I'm like, "Oh."
Aw.
I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry, Marvel." The biggest thing is, and this is out of left field, I wasn't expecting this. The 2-year-old is very jealous of the cat
Really?
in a weird, like, new baby way, or like, so she pretends to be a cat about 80% of her day anyway. That's what we were gonna do. That's part of why we were like, "Okay, I think she's ready to have a pet," is because she spends so much time as a cat already. But then we introduced an actual cat, and now she's not just a cat. She is specifically Marvel the cat. And so now we have 2 Marvel the cats in the house, and if you dare call her anything but Marvel the cat, you will get yelled at. I am not a baby. I am not your sweet girl. I'm Marvel the cat. And You'd think Cody could remember, but he can't. He keeps calling her by her name or, some term of endearment, and she's like, "I'm Marvel the
She's very
cat."
upset about it. Oh, that's too funny. That's not a reaction
It's
I was
it's pretty
expecting
funny.
from your children is jealousy.
It's yeah. Um, but no, she's been very sweet. She loves to sleep in the room with the
Aw.
kids. She sleeps on she knows Cody is one of her like a fellow cat, so she sleeps on his lap a lot. No, she's good. She's been golden. She's only gotten mouthy with us once, but according to Derek, that's probably more out of an affectionate like, "I like that you're
Oh,
petting me,"
yeah, they get a little overstimulated when you
but
pet them sometimes, they might bite.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's what it was. So,
Welcome to
yeah,
Cat
that's
Club.
exciting.
We're happy to have you. And
Yeah. I'll send you just, like, so
send
many
me all the
pictures later.
photos.
I didn't know if you wanted pictures I didn't know if you want a picture of my cat
I
while
want
you
a
were in the
I
Bahamas.
want a
That felt a
picture of
little
everyone's cat while I'm in the Bahamas. I don't even have to know you. Just send me your cats, it's fine.
you just
I was missing
scrolling
my
the internet
cats
for
so much.
cats.
I mean, I also missed my husband, but
Mm,
really missed my cats.
yeah,
My
the
boys.
cats. Well, that's
I have
true,
all
you
boys.
have
Yeah,
all
just call
boys,
them my
say, "Well, my
boys, yeah.
boys, my boys." Um, Doctor Emily Durkin, do you have any cats?
I don't.
Oh, no, you have a
I
dog.
do have a dog.
I saw him on your website, a little
Yes.
fluffy little fella.
Yes. And I was gonna say, like, I don't want to bring things down. But I was just
Oh,
say what's been bugging me is that pets have to age.
Yes. I hate
oh,
it.
yeah.
I hate it.
Me too.
Yes,
And
truly.
I guess this is a positive thing though as well that I'm happy to talk about and share
Mhm.
is I kind of over my break. So as a professor, it's like end of the term in December. I had a chunk of time classes start this coming week for me. Um, and everyone keeps asking me, "How was your break? How was your break?" And it's like, it. I had like a mental crisis
Oh, no.
somewhat because it was this realization of my dog's 13 and a half. He's been having some
Mm,
health issues, and my brain just could not
Mhm.
deal with it. The positive and what I have really loved from all of this experience is everyone I have told and have talked to has been so nice, understanding, or in some cases in a similar boat.
Mhm.
So I
mhm.
guess if you are someone dealing with that or thinking about that, you are totally not
Yes.
alone. And yeah, so I was going to say
Yeah,
it's been the
yeah,
bummer part, but also a huge positive has been everyone I've spoken to about it has been so kind and it's just helped me. So
My boy Darcy is like 14, 15, so I'm right there with you. Yeah.
oh,
yeah, it's tough. And you get in this, your brain's constantly like, oh, are you doing something are you okay? Are you not
mm,
okay?
mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
and it eats at me. So but yeah, it has helped a lot to just tell people like, yeah, my brain had this
Yeah,
realization and it's been really hard for me to deal with. And so many people are like, oh my gosh, I
We are
get it.
also there for you as pet owners. We
Of
understand.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And me for
yeah,
you all. I was gonna say I have a dog, not a cat, but similar. I
yeah,
get it. You have these things so
That need you,
such a
and
huge part of
yeah,
your life. And it's tough to deal with. So I guess that's what's been bugging me, but
totally fair. What
and
kind
it
of dog do you have?
yeah, and he's a miniature schnauzer.
Aw, very cute.
I adore him. He's
mhm,
wonderful. He's
What's his
great.
name?
But yeah, it's Pepper.
Pfeffer? Like pepper?
Yeah. Yes,
Very cute.
but in
Yeah,
German.
yeah.
It's like, okay. Because I remember
Is
getting
it
him as a
is it a
puppy, and
schnauzer?
there are people that were like, "Oh, you should name him Pepper." And I was like, "I don't want to name him Pepper." I thought that was too obvious. So then I was like, "Fine, I'll name him Pfeffer."
Pfeffer is a good compromise. Yeah.
Yes. I was
Yeah,
like, "Okay, that works."
I believe it was George Washington who bred schnauzers. Just fun fact for you.
Seriously?
Um, yeah,
Oh,
he loved schnauzers.
Wow.
Mount Vernon was just littered with
covered in schnauzers.
schnauzers. Um, just absolutely. rife with schnauzers. But we are talking about, we should say, we have a guest this week, you guys. I don't know if you noticed that there's a third person here, Dr. Emily Durkin. Dr. Emily Durkin, tell us about your background, where you coming from, and what are we going to talk about today?
Absolutely. I love talking about my background. So I am what is called a first gen college graduate scientist, all of it. So I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. My parents were both just working class folks. I loved creatures and critters since I was teeny tiny. And so I knew pretty early on I wanted to study biology. I didn't know exactly what aspect of biology. And so then I went to a small undergraduate institution in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Northern Michigan University. I did my bachelor's there. I stayed and did a master's degree. And for my master's degree, I actually studied chewing lice on birds.
Oh, cool.
And that was where I really got my first introduction to insects, entomology. Because before that, I wanted to be like a million different things. And microbiology, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I wanted all these different things. And then I really fell in love. I took a parasitology class. And as someone who loves evolutionary biology and how organisms kind of adapt and evolve to their environments, seeing these parasites, which have highly specific adaptations to their hosts, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so then the parasite system I studied happened to be an insect parasite. And so then I finished that and I thought, I love this. I want to continue studying parasites. And there was a professor at the University of Alberta in Canada who was looking for a PhD student, and her study system was these mites on flies. And her work up until that point had focused primarily on the flies themselves and the impact of the mites on the flies. And so when I applied, I said, I would want to study the mites. I wouldn't want to study the flies. And I thought, I was like, well, this might be risky. She may not want to work with me. But she did and said, that sounds great. So I went up there into Canada and did my PhD. My PhD work actually focused on, I was really interested in the heritability of the attachment behavior and the attaching of these mites on flies, because this hypothesis of how parasites even evolved from free living ancestors. I had thought to myself, like, well, there's this hypothesis that, maybe phoretic behavior, especially in parasitic insects and arthropods, things like phoretic behavior can be like this evolutionary stepping stone to
Can you
becoming
define phoretic
obligately.
for our listeners who may not know?
Yes, I can. So phorecy is when a smaller organism attaches to a larger organism, typically as a means of dispersal. So usually we kind of define that as not actually harming the larger. We typically see this in, I think more so the small arthropod world. So usually the larger host organism that's carrying the smaller one is not harmed in the process. And then through that relationship, we might see the evolution of particular structures or behaviors where that smaller organism may begin harming or maybe feeding on that larger organism while they are attached for a ride. And over evolutionary time, this could eventually evolve into an obligate, a necessary part of their life where that's their lifestyle. They feed on these other organisms. But my evolutionary brain, I had thought for that to be true, it must mean that attaching to an organism would have to be heritable, because only heritable traits, traits that can be passed from parent to offspring, can actually evolve within a population. And that hadn't been explored. So my PhD work, my big PhD project was actually experimental evolution of mites. So I had a control population, and I had my population where I was actually selecting the mites that attach to the flies and allowing them to reproduce, and then compare to see, hey, did attachment behavior increase in
Oh,
this
cool.
population where I impeded selection compared to the control? And yes, it did, which was really cool. So I really love the PhD work I did. And then I have kind of branched out from there. I did some cool work as a postdoc at the University of Florida, looking at the repeatability of behavior, this
Hmm.
attachment behavior in individual mites, looking at like, hey, are there some individuals that just don't ever want to attach to a
Yeah, that's
fly, and
interesting.
some that are like, yes, I always want to attach to a fly? And we found yes, there are there is this significant variation among individuals where it seems like we have the totally want to attach to flies all the time, and those that are like, nope, I never want anything to do with it, which is really
So
cool.
why would that be? Where do they
That is a
Yeah.
great question.
I like the whys, yeah.
I know, and those are the fun questions that are really hard to
Mhm.
answer. I don't exactly know why. Um,
Is it a dispersal thing? Like some
my
of them shouldn't fully disperse? Maybe you want local populations?
And that's a
Who
possibility.
knows?
I mean, one thought I've always had is, and I have explored as well, what maintains the variation in attachment behavior, because we see in wild populations that although we can select for increased attachment behavior, um, we do commonly see a lot of variation still. And some of the sources of that attachment behavior variation is it seems to be a plastic trait, which means it's a trait that changes depending upon the environment that it's experiencing. And so, one of the things I found in some of the work I've done is that with increased population density of mites, we see an
Mhm.
increase level of attachment behavior. Um, other I was going to say, I think that was the only one for sure that I
Have you
found.
tested environmental
Um,
changes?
I have not, but I would not be surprised. And I think there maybe has been, there were a lot of studies done in like the 1950s and 60s on the specific mite that I study, um, because I think there was a thought that these mites may be a good potential biocontrol agent for pest flies,
Oh, cool.
because the
Mm.
adult mites, they certainly attach to adult flies, but while they're living in, they're commonly, so these mites are commonly found in the environment. You can find them almost anywhere. As far as I know, they are totally worldwide found, this species. The species is Macrocheles musca domestica, and um, they are commonly found in decomposing habitats. So I commonly find them in compost, but they are also really commonly found in animal manure, because they love eating fly eggs, fly
Oh, okay.
larvae in the manure, and then they'll attach to the flies as well, most likely to um, find a new habitat, because things like dung piles or
Ah,
potentially rotting organic matter, they dry up eventually after a while, and it's usually not a constant source of um, nice happy home for them, because eventually it might start drying out. Um, Nutrients and food might start disappearing, and they're teeny tiny. The females are about, I would say, 1 to 2
Wow.
millimeters as adults.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're pretty tiny, but for the mite world, they're actually kind of
Huh.
big, which
For
is
comparison, if
fun.
you think about the length of a mosquito wing, that's about 5 millimeters. If you can wrap your
Yeah,
head
yeah. So I
around.
was gonna say it sounds about right. Yeah.
So when I hear the word mite, I think of here in Oregon, there's these little red mites that live on like your wood furniture, and sometimes I always heard that they bite. I don't know that I've ever been bitten by one, but that was always the like, don't get that mite off you, it's gonna bite you. And I was always like, it's a tiny red dot, it'll be fine. So is that the same? If it's not the same species, the same sort of
Yeah.
thing we're talking about here?
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, mites. So mites are not insects, but they are arthropods. They are actually arachnids. So they
I remember I learned that on this podcast. I was like, what are you saying to me right now?
Yes, they are teeny tiny arachnids. So they have 4 pairs of legs. They have 8 legs. They have a pair of pedipalps, which is just like our spiders. So what makes them a bit different from spiders? So spiders, if you think about a spider, spiders typically have those like 2 distinct body segments, the cephalothorax and the abdomen. Mites kind of have just one distinct body segment, and they're teeny tiny. We call this body segment, well, what do we call that body segment? I was going to say we sometimes actually break their single body segment into 2 parts, the gnathosoma, which is gnatho, like the mouth part area. So the anterior-most end we call the gnathosoma, and then the rest of the body is the opisthossoma. But essentially, when you're comparing a spider and a mite, mites typically have just one body segment that's nice and obvious. Spiders have
like
2.
a daddy long legs.
And
Amanda.
then
Yeah. His face and his chunk are all kind of one. Kind of like how an octopus is just kind of face and chunk.
Right.
And like
Yes,
that.
because they
Not
are
really distinct.
technically not our true spiders. They have that one body segment, which is really cool. They're also such a neat little group. And they sometimes I've seen some cool pictures of some really neat daddy longlegs species that have really big chelicerae that look like crab claws. So our arachnids are chelicerates. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not like the best taxonomist.
That's
remembering
that's
who's
right.
in which group. But our chelicerates, the chelicerae are these appendages on the anterior end, kind of near the mouth. And I think the ancestral form is for a lot of them to they seriously just look like crab claws, which is really cool.
Crabs are inevitable.
I mean, I love it. Yes, and
the crabs are coming for you.
They're small, and so all mites have a pair of chelicerae, and there's highly diverse modifications, which is really cool. Depending on how they live and what they like to eat, they have really different sized or different shaped chelicerae. And then our ticks, I think most people are familiar with ticks because we don't like them. Ticks are actually in the group Acari, so they're very closely related to mites. Their chelicerae have been somewhat modified into this feeding structure called a hippostome, so our ticks, because they have such a different lifestyle, they're not free living, they are built for and have kind of evolved structures to help them feed off of vertebrates. And so I guess this is all go ahead.
Sorry, so is a tick also an arachnid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That was my brain's exploding for those listening. I mean, I guess that makes sense. When I look at a tick, it is just kind of a big old mite, just a big boy of a mite.
Yeah. I mean, essentially that is. I mean, they're in the same
fairly. Yeah.
Same body, same face and chunk.
I saw the other last summer a type of elephant mite, and it was the biggest mite I've ever seen. It was
I have
huge.
never heard of this.
They are. I don't.
Oh my god!
Does it?
They're like this.
Does it get the name because it's huge?
I think it's the family name is elephant. Yeah, I think it's elephant mite, and it was. I'm trying to think about like size wise, like half the size of your pinky nail, maybe. It was just the biggest chunky thing I've ever. I didn't know they got that big. It was on a flower. It was sitting on a flower. Yeah.
Have you seen I guess it depends on where you live. I'm not sure of their distribution. Those big fuzzy red velvet
Oh
mites,
yeah, yeah. Fuzzy.
Mhm.
those are fun. They get pretty big
Those are
too.
large. What do they feed on? Do you know?
Yeah. Now, again, I could be totally wrong, so I should be double checked. Um,
Oh, he's like a raisin with legs, but he's red. Sorry,
yes,
I
yes,
googled
and
for
they're
Devin.
fuzzy. They're so cute. If I remember correctly, a lot of those actually have parasitic larvae.
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
gonna double check.
Interesting.
So velvet mites, if I remember correctly, all of them, yeah, Trumbididae.
Ambididae?
Actual acarologists that listen to this might be horrified
It's okay, they can
by
come
me
on the
not
show
knowing,
then.
but I feel like I'm more of a yes, I was to say
Yeah,
I'm
they got a
more of
problem.
a
They can email us.
I consider myself to be more of a evolutionary ecologist, and I've used mites as a
Mhm.
study system and have fallen in love with mites and insects and that whole world.
That tiny little
But
world.
most species, yes, this tiny, well, yes, larvae parasitize
Oh,
insects
cool.
and arachnids. And so, and the adults I have eat insect eggs. This is from
Oh, wow.
bugguide.net.
Neat.
So yeah, I have actually. So speaking of daddy long legs, this is, I don't know if this is too off topic, but
Never. We love
daddy
a
long
story.
legs. Okay. So I actually have a few specimens. So while I was a postdoc at the University of Florida, a really one the person I work with, Dr. Nick Kaiser, he's amazing. He's really into spiders, and he actually got me into spiders while I was
Love
there.
spiders.
And while we were there, we started the first um, spider parasite collection. And so if you ever find spiders with parasites, um, he will be very interested in them. But one of the specimens I brought him when I lived in Kentucky, I found a bunch of Apilionids, daddy longlegs, covered in these bright orangish red little blobs
Oh,
attached
cool.
to them. And those were the larval form of an a larval form of an adult velvet mite,
Wow.
which is really cool. So we have some in our spider parasite
I'll have to keep an eye
collection,
out
some
this summer.
spiders with, yes. Where do
I'm
you
in New
live?
Jersey.
Or in New Jersey? I think you should be able to find some. I think they're common, I think in aquatic
Okay.
areas is where if I have found some, is usually near streams and kind of wetter areas where you might
That's
find them.
awesome. Well, I'll probably be down in the Pine Barrens, and it
Yeah,
gets pretty wet down there. It's like half pine, half marsh area.
awesome.
Very cool. Man,
Good setting for a horror movie.
mites are so neat.
So,
Like really neat.
so the flies that you're studying, about how big are the flies compared to the mites that you study? Because I'm picturing like fruit flies, but I think that's being influenced by that. I know fruit flies are used in science a lot.
So
So
you are totally not wrong. Fruit flies are great because they're easy to maintain in the lab. And these guys, I have actually found a related species of this mite, Macrocheles sabatius, which is a little smaller but has a very similar lifestyle to the mite I focus on. I have found them attached to my dog. They they don't seem to be very discriminatory. They will attach to a lot of different insects, which is nice for me. But I think they do particularly like the flies. But of all the flies, we have a really good system for raising and maintaining Drosophila fruit fly cultures in the lab. So I actually do work with fruit flies. I work with a species that is much chunkier than Drosophila melanogaster. They're the ones that will, I think, often show up. They'll come out of your fruit and other things in your home. They're pretty teeny tiny. The ones I work with are Drosophila hydei, which I would say, just as like a guesstimate, they're probably about twice the size.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty
So
big.
they're pretty big and chunky. And so these mites can actually get quite big. I was going to say on my website, I think I have some pictures, I believe.
And for the listeners, melanogaster is kind of the classic biology fruit fly used in evolutionary studies and lots of studies, actually. So if you're a biology student in college, you will probably work with them at some point.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, probably, and potentially in a genetics class.
Yeah. Oh, look at them.
Oh, okay. Producer Derek has put up a picture of 4 flies who I
Yes.
assume have shuffled off this mortal coil, as I like to say.
So what's interesting is that not all of those are Macrochelys domesticae or macrochelid mites, actually. So, mites, there are a gajillion types of mites, which can make them very frustrating to work with and study. But also it makes it kind of fun and cool because there are so many different ones to find and look at and maybe even newly describe. But so these 4 flies were wild caught from compost. And so this is how I often go out and collect these mites and find them. It's one of the ways I go out and find them and try to start cultures as I go to compost sites and I collect flies hovering around, bring them back to the lab, put the flies to sleep using CO2. So all these flies are asleep right now. And look to see if they have any mites attached to them. So these first, I have no idea what species of fruit fly these are. They're all some species of fruit fly because they're just wild caught from compost. But these first 2 on the left, these mites have kind of they have a shield. It's called a dorsal shield. So on their backside or on the back edge of them, they have this nice big shield. And you may notice it's kind of hard to see, but it's easier to see on the second one. You can see its shield is kind of divided into 2 pieces, almost like 2 hemispheres.
Oh, yeah. Where the shiny spot is.
Yeah. And so macrochelid mites actually have a nice solid dorsal shield. So this is a nice characteristic to help us group mites in some cases into specific taxonomic groups. So these are mites I was not interested in, but the mite on the furthest right has a single shield, and that is a macrochelid mite. And again, depending on the species, they can be big, they can be small. But I would say that these mites, gosh, I mean, you can get a fly that has a single mite that is almost the length of its entire abdomen or like 3/4 of its abdomen on there. And so other studies that have been done on this system and similar systems, even though, because there have been some questions as to whether these mites are actually feeding on the flies while they're attached or not, I still do not have a definitive answer to that question. I think my best guess right now and what my gut tells me is that some do and some don't, which kind of a theme here of some mites doing some things and some not. But these guys, even if they aren't feeding on the tissue of these flies, just the sheer amount of weight that sometimes these mites add to these flies, there have been studies that have found that these mites have to expend a lot more energy on flying. So some of them fly shorter distances or shorter periods of time. And it can end up being costly for them because in some cases as well, they produce fewer eggs. Some of these flies produce less offspring if they've had mites on them at some point. So there's lots of cool relationships that we've kind of, myself and other researchers have kind of revealed between these flies and mites. So I don't know, they're an interesting little group.
So what exactly is a mite feeding on from a fly? Assuming he is feeding.
Right.
That she's stealing nutrients. What exactly is she sucking down? Like
what she
in a
Again,
And a
so
vertebrate, I'd assume it's blood.
blood,
But with a
correct.
yeah.
But on an insect, it's usually like the insect equivalent of blood, hemolymph.
Mm.
So insects have an open circulatory system. So they just have, so like in us, we have blood vessels that carry our blood. But in these guys, their equivalent of blood is just sloshing around all within their exoskeleton. So, yeah, the assumption is that they can maybe chew a little hole and start feeding on tissues as well as hemolymph. The reason why I say that's an assumption is because a few years ago, I think it was 2019, there was a study published. So have y'all heard of varroa mites?
No.
No.
Okay.
Tell us
So
more.
varroa mites are a very famous mite because they parasitize bees.
Oh, okay.
So in the bee
Oh, okay.
world, it's a big deal because everybody loves bees and we care so much about bees. And of course, people who
Except for Kelly, who doesn't want them on her roof.
Well,
yeah,
honeybees.
but, yeah,
Honeybees. Yeah. Native I love.
honeybees. So it's like specific to our honeybees. And so, you know, everyone that's really into bees, it's a big culture around bees. And so there was a lot of, there's been a lot of work and study put into these varroa mites. And so it was always assumed that these varroa mites kind of attached to these bees that they were feeding on hemolymph. But it wasn't until somebody, the name is escaping me. I just want to give credit where credit is due, but there was a paper published, I believe, in 2019 with these beautiful scanning electron micrograph images, as well as some like deep diving into where are those mouth parts actually going. And they found that these mites were actually feeding on the fat body of the bees.
Oh, interesting.
Which is, I mean, similar to us. It's like adipose tissue, fat. And that was really important because there are some medications or pesticides or some control agents that people were trying to implement and use to kill these mites in hives or to help make individual bees more resistant, but they were only circulating in the hemolymph and not the fat body itself. And so it was a really important discovery because it's like we need to maybe rethink how we're going to try to control these mites, at least in some of these aspects, because they aren't actually feeding on the hemolymph. They're feeding on a different structure in these bees, which isn't taking up some of the pesticides or chemicals we've been trying to use. So
that's really cool.
I don't know. It's really important. Yeah, it's really important sometimes figuring out what these mites are feeding on or not feeding on. In some cases.
Well, I think also when we think about insects, we don't generally think about fat bodies. You know, it's not like a common.
Yeah, they're not really fat. Yeah.
No, that's true.
They kind of get bigger, but I wouldn't ever say that I've seen a fat bug.
The only time I feel like I've seen a fat bug was there was a lab at the University of Alberta that was studying and interested in kind of like immune systems of insects, which is really cool. But one of the study systems they had was hornworms, so like tobacco hornworms. So they make those big, nice, chunky.
Those guys are kind of
caterpillars that you may have seen.
Okay. I think about caterpillars do get kind of fat.
But this in particular, this is an amazing story as well. So stop me if it goes too far off track.
We love it.
But they studied as well parasitoid wasps of these hornworms. So a parasitoid wasp, many of them are teeny tiny wasps, and they often like to lay their eggs. A parasitoid, I guess I'll get technical here. So a parasitoid is different from a parasite in that. So a parasite, we define a parasite as a symbiotic relationship in which one organism is harmed, and the other benefits from that harm. A parasitoid is a similar symbiotic relationship, but ultimately the host always dies as part of that relationship. So that's what distinguishes a parasitoid from a
Right.
Think of
parasite.
classic
Because a parasite doesn't
Sigourney
have.
Weaver
Oh,
aliens.
sorry, go.
Yes, that would
Yes.
be a
They both do that.
parasitoid. Yes, you
Because
are
a
dying
parasite
in the
wants to keep
process.
you alive. Yeah, a tapeworm wants to live in there for as long as possible.
Correct.
But
Usually, I mean,
the
of
alien
course,
comes busting it.
death can occur if you get too many of anything or all sorts of things. But in general, yes, a parasite killing the host is not a typical part of their life cycle, whereas a parasitoid, it is. So these parasitoid wasps, they love laying their eggs in these tobacco hornworm larvae, and so it'll lay its eggs in there. The larvae grow up. They feed on the hornworm's hemolymph and other tissues, and then they eventually chew their way out and spin their little cocoons on the outside, which is amazing. And then they metamorphose and fly off as adults. But what's really amazing is that these parasitoid wasps, the female, her eggs are covered in these viruses that actually interfere with the development of the caterpillar.
Oh, cool.
Because they don't want the caterpillar to metamorphose into an adult, like sphinx moth.
While they're in
That's
there.
what they turn into while they're in
Yeah.
there. And so, just fun, cool story. The professor of that lab, Dr. Andy Keddy, who retired while I was there, but he called them Michelin hornworms because even after, so they can survive
Okay.
the larvae coming out, but they will eventually die. And as part of the viruses that the female wasp puts in there, she makes the caterpillar not be able to fully develop into an adult. And so they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And oh my gosh, they get so
Is there
large.
a limit
And he had
to
told
how
me,
big they can get?
yes.
Will they rupture?
Because I think
Unfortunately,
yes. Because I was
yes.
to say, I think at some point they stop molting. But he's told me before he has poked them, these Michelin caterpillars, and he's like hemolymph, because they're under so much pressure, it would just like spray out.
Wow.
It's like,
Oh
oh
my gosh, this is some Dr. Pimple Popper
That
stuff.
must be
Yes.
so
Oh my
uncomfortable for the caterpillar.
I
Because they
would
have a
assume
nervous
so. These
system.
poor
They're feeling
caterpillars.
something, right? All that, like when you bang your thumb and it swells. I imagine it's a similar feeling.
Yes. Oh, I
Poor
know.
guys.
I know. So that is a chubby insect that I've
fascinating.
seen where I thought, wow. Yes, it's like, wow, you look like you're gonna pop. And
you
you
might.
literally probably will.
Oh,
Yeah, with some time.
Gross. I apologize to the listeners who like me are squeamish about parasitoid activity.
Sorry, yes.
it's all part of the
sorry.
podcast. They know what
You're
they're
fine.
signing up for.
It's all part of yeah. Well, every time we do that that panel about like animals and the powers they have, we do it at Comic-Con sometimes. Every time one of those pictures comes up where it's like the caterpillar with all these parasitoids all over it. Every time I have to be like, look out, you guys. Okay, you guys, look away if you don't like, because I don't want to like jump scare someone.
Yeah,
They're
you
just
have to
trying to
give
have
a
a good time at
warning.
Comic-Con here. I need a trigger warning for you. So yeah. So I'm going to pause you here briefly just to say, do you think the Mite is a hero or a villain?
Controversial statements.
Controversial.
Very
Sometimes
controversial.
we do a like sort of free range, like, Deadpool's not really a hero or a villain.
We've
He's
done
kind of
anti-heroes too.
wherever we've done anti-heroes, but in general, would you say that a Mite is a hero or like the shark? Is he just doing what he do?
So, because I feel like I'm such a mite advocate,
Uh-huh.
and it all depends on perspective, I believe, on whether something,
Mhm.
especially something that is symbiotic on something else, whether it is a
As a
hero
mosquito biologist,
or
I'm right there with you.
Right,
yes,
I was gonna
whether
say,
it's a
Kelly's
hero
all
or
in
a
on this.
villain may depend on like whose perspective. And so
Right.
as someone who is a mite advocate, I'm going to say the mite is a hero.
Fair.
All right. All right.
Can you?
Yeah.
People often ask me, what good are mosquitoes? What are mosquitoes good for? Which is not really the way we should be looking at any living creature. But I will ask you the same question. What about mites? What are mites doing for the ecosystem and other species, for the community?
Yeah. So excellent question, because I feel like not many people care about mites.
Let's make them care.
So
Let's make it happen.
yeah. So
Now's your chance.
mites, yeah. So we have tons of mites, and we have kind of these different categories. There are lots of parasitic mites of vertebrates, so they have some um, relevance to us as humans. So they cause scabies, and they can harm our pets. They can harm our livestock as well. So we've got those that we should care about them, but also all of the free living mites play such a huge role in soil health, ecosystem health. There are detritivores. So these are the things that are eating all the dead plant material. They're chewing it up, pooping it out, getting it back into the environment. Um, so they're important for soil health. Um, and just, yeah, I was going to say, I feel like when it comes to the general health of an ecosystem, they are very tiny and they play such huge roles in soil ecology, which soil is so important to an environment in general. So, yeah, they're really important for that. And there have been some cool studies that have shown that mites actually are really good bioindicators for
Oh,
ecosystem
cool.
health.
Very cool.
So so looking at, the number of mites or the number of species, the diversity of mites in a habitat can give you a clue, potentially, as to how healthy an ecosystem may be. And if you're seeing a reduction in the number or diversity of mites within a habitat, might be indicating that there's something not good going on, and might be scaling up from the ground and with these teeny tiny creatures. So kind of like little canaries of the coal mine as well. So they're very important. They're easily forgotten, and it's understandable because sometimes we can't even see them.
We have mites on us right now, right? All the time.
I was just going to say, so warning, maybe if you're not into parasites or mites, a large proportion of you have mites living on your face right now that you can't see.
I've heard that, like, if you have, like, really stubborn acne, like some, like, deep acne, it might be that you have an overinfestation of mites in your
Yes, it could
skin.
be. It could be that, or it could be that your body is actually reacting to them or is having
Oh,
like
you're
an
having an allergic
allergy.
reaction.
Yes,
Oh.
that can cause an issue. But for most of us, we don't even notice.
Yeah.
And they're interesting. They're goofy looking mites. They have really long bodies and little stubby legs. The genus, I believe, is Demodex.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
Or someone.
That makes sense. That sounds right.
Yeah. But that, yeah.
Yeah.
So mites are everywhere, doing everything. And we often don't see anything they're doing because they're so small.
They're food for other things, right? The larger ones.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, still probably very small organisms. Yeah. But yes,
something's
they are
got to
a
feed
food
those
source
too.
for lots of. Absolutely, they are a huge food source for lots of other smaller creatures in the environment, which again, that all scales up to all of our larger critters in the environment. So
I'm definitely team mites as heroes.
Important.
They sound like heroes to me.
I think yes, me too. A lot of people would probably, well, maybe not. I hope hopefully we've convinced a lot of people
Mhm.
that they are heroes. Um, there are maybe some villains out there, but again, it's like everybody's got to eat. So,
Just doing their thing.
yeah. What's your I am very curious now because as someone who lives in Florida, I often hear about how terrible and useless mosquitoes are. What what is the importance of mosquitoes? I kind of have an idea of some things for sure, but I would love to
So,
hear.
generally, and for any listeners who want like my long spiel, you can go to the mosquito episode. I think it's episode 5 or something. Um, it's
It's
early.
early,
So
yeah.
mosquitoes are a food source. Their larvae are aquatic, and their adult form is flying terrestrial. So they're feeding two different communities that are connected. If you love dragonflies and damselflies, they eat mosquitoes. Um, Not all mosquitoes bite people. There's maybe 3 genera that are the problem. Problem, Uh, and
They're
yeah,
problem makers, at least.
Yeah.
there's a group of mosquitoes called toxorhynchites that only feed on other mosquitoes. So they're
Oh,
total heroes.
wow.
Mosquito on mosquito
Yeah.
crime.
Wow, I did not know that. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
they're big. They're called elephant mosquitoes. They're like really hefty.
Is this entomologist out here being like, it's big? It's like
Yeah, that's just what we
Elephant.
do.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
going to say we just talked about elephant
Yeah.
mites as well.
It's an elephant-sized mite.
It's
This is an
it's the biggest
elephant-sized
thing we have to we should call them whale mosquitoes. I think
Yeah, we really should call
that'd be
them like
more
blue whale,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and they're pollinators. So males cannot drink blood. Their little proboscis couldn't do it if they tried. They only feed on nectar. Um, and females only drink blood when they're ready to make eggs. So even then, they're mostly drinking nectar. Uh, and here in New Jersey, I forgot what species it is, but there's a type of orchid, and the primary pollinator is mosquito. They actually pollinate a lot of
That's
orchids.
awesome.
So if you like orchids, you like mosquitoes.
Yeah. Okay, I have one other. I know this isn't the
It's
topic, but
okay.
I'm just so fascinated. Another question I have that you may have an answer to. Do crane flies eat
No, they can only
mosquitoes?
drink nectar.
They are not a
They're
Okay.
skeeter
called
eater.
mosquito
They're
hawks,
not
and
a
I don't know
skeeter
where that came
eater.
from, but they couldn't eat a mosquito if they
Yes,
wanted
because I
to.
was gonna. I've been
They're
told by
mosquito the size of a hawk,
yeah,
honestly.
I've been told by many that's like, oh, crane flies eat mosquitoes. I've been told growing up,
Hmm.
and I thought I read somewhere. I was like, oh, they don't
Old
actually
wives'
feed on
tale.
mosquitoes.
Yeah, they don't. They just drink nectar and
Good
bump
to
into you.
know. Okay.
They're too.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say they don't bother me at all. But I wasn't sure if it was true that they actually fed on mosquitoes. So spreading the good
Yeah.
word that they're still great. Don't fear crane
They
flies,
don't bite.
but
They
they
like
don't eat
nectar.
mosquitoes.
They're very dumb. They're just constantly bumping,
Yes.
bumping, bumping. I don't know what their deal is. Um,
I find them in my apartment
mhm.
often, and I always catch them and let them outside. But yes, they are they seem like they are not good
No,
flyers,
no
and they're
direction.
just kind of, yes, which makes them hard to
Hmm.
catch. And they seem so delicate. I'm always afraid
Yeah,
I'm going
those
to
long
break them.
legs.
So that makes it hard for me to catch them. Like, come on, I just want to let you
They
outside.
they fly
But
like they've been
okay,
drinking. They're yeah,
yes, they do. Oh, thank you
sure.
for letting me answer or ask a couple
We're all here
questions.
to learn, everybody. I know nothing about mites, so this has
Yeah.
been so cool. So cool. Now I want to study mites. I want to study everything, low
They
key. Yeah.
Me too. I was gonna say if yeah, as long as it's
Yeah,
alive.
yeah.
I like rocks too, though. To say I do rocks, but then beyond not living things and rocks, I'm not as into that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, I also wanted to be a paleontologist when I was little, so I get it.
If you
So
didn't want to be a paleontologist at some point, are you even neurospicy? All right, like, come on.
I wanted to as a kid. Then, as an undergraduate student, I took a vertebrate biology class, and the professor taught it a little differently than many do, and we only studied the extinct
Oh,
vertebrates and basically how they
that's
evolved
cool.
to to the extant vertebrates we know today. It was a very difficult class, lots of taxonomy of things I had never heard of. But it was then that my love of paleontology kind of emerged again, because I chatted with him. I loved that class so much. And he had said to me, you can study this. And I was like, no way. But then I had learned at one point he had mentioned, like, well, to be a vertebrate paleontologist, you need to be really good, and it's pretty competitive. And I don't like
Mm,
competition. I'm not a competitive. And I was like, I don't want to be in a science world where there is potentially lots of competition to make it
you're just
through.
fighting the whole time.
Yeah,
No
I've been,
more.
yeah, and I was like, I don't think I want that. And so the mite world, there's plenty. So I suppose you're limited by the fossils you find and who finds them. So it's probably much more limited
Mhm.
specimens, I suppose, and relative to fields like entomology and acarology. It's like there are so many insects and mites for everybody.
There's enough to go
In
around.
some cases, at least. Yes, and in the field of acarology, it's like there's too many to go around because there aren't many people studying them. That I feel like, yeah, it's less competitive. It's less,
I, I also
people maybe fighting over, like, well, I actually studied that group, so, hands
I feel
off.
like
Where,
entomologists
yeah, you
tend to be
might,
more collaborative too. We're like very into talking to
yeah,
each other and about our stuff and your stuff and you
yes,
know.
yes. And just the pure fascination and love of these small, bizarre creatures that are so cool. It's like, how can you not get excited? But this is also not a like poo pooing
No, no.
paleontology. It was just,
It's a
yeah,
different field.
this was just what someone told me. And that immediately just steered me in a different direction. It's like, oh, nope, 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 nope. I don't, no competition for me. Um, so it's like
Well,
out of
we're
there.
we're
And
glad to
I'm
have you
actually
here with
really
mites.
happy. Yeah, me too. I love them so much. And I love, like I said, when I was at the University of Florida as a postdoc, that my PI, Nick Kaiser, um, he really got me into spiders. And I'm just like, I just love and adore spiders. Oh, and speaking of pets, oh, they're still at my friend's house from when I was out of town. I bought myself last year some captive bred jumping
Oh,
spiders as
cool. What
pets.
kind?
So Phidippus
Oh, the
regius,
regal jumping
the
spider.
regal jumping
Yeah.
spider, and I think they're the largest species of jumping spider, at least in North America, and they are endemic to Florida. I bred them,
Oh,
and I
wow.
ended up raising some baby jumping spiders. And so now I have 8 or like 10, I can't remember. And I've been giving them as gifts for people. Like, would you like a jumping spider? Because they're so
Aw.
adorable and fun. And I've taken in tarantulas um,
Do you have to keep
that
them
need
separate?
homes.
You Yeah, they're
Yes.
cannibalized?
So yeah, I was gonna say, I believe most spiders. Oh my gosh, another weird, cool tangent that I will just touch on. And if you ever want to reach out to him, I know he would love to do a podcast like this.
Ooh,
So Nick Kaiser at the University of
write
Florida,
that down, Derek.
who's really into, yeah, and if you want, I'll ask him too because we chat regularly all the time. Um, he actually, as part of his PhD work, studied social
Ooh.
spiders. So it's a pretty not common lifestyle for arachnids. A lot of spiders like to live on their own and don't live communally, but there are some species of social spiders that live in these large groups and they even hunt together. And so when I got there, he had some in his lab that he and maybe someone else went and collected and brought back from Africa. So as far as I know, we don't have any like true social spiders in North America. Oh, I know there are colonial ones.
I saw a bunch in the Bahamas. So I saw like webbing, and then there were about 20 plus adult spiders all together in this thick web.
Amazing.
And I don't know what species they
That's
were. I took some
amazing.
photos.
Yeah, he would know. He
I'll
would
ask
know.
him.
But so yeah, just another really cool group of creatures. So yes, most of my spiders live separately, but there are a few really cool species that love to hang out and live together.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yes, is awesome. And they're really cute. The African ones, they are adorable. And after interacting with them, it's like, yes, indeed, if they had to live by themselves, I don't think they would make it. They are so small. They're kind of like the size of a jumping spider. And they have these adorable little faces. And they all, when you put a cricket in, they'd all come out. They have like one web where they all live together. And then they have their, what I think is called a capture
Oh my God,
web,
that's
where they
adorable.
yes, and then
A
they
little
all
dorm
come
room
out,
spider.
and yes, and then like one or two like will bite the insect, and then they all kind of come out and start gathering around and taking the insect down. It's a really
Wow.
interesting, cool group of animals. So yeah, Nick Kaiser is someone who would be a great person to
That's
talk
awesome.
to for
I
spider
have
stuff.
many
Yeah.
questions for Nick should he come on the podcast.
Yes.
I love wolf spiders and would
Me
love to do some
too.
research on them when I'm almost done with my PhD. So when the mosquitoes are done, I'd like to hop to something else.
That would be
Yeah.
amazing. Wolf spiders also very. Have you seen Mama Wolf Spider with
Oh,
all
so
her babies?
cute. Yeah, I love them.
I know. I do too, but I also understand a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So,
Well, how long do your regal jumpers live for? What's the lifespan?
so I bought, they probably were in their last couple of molts, so they would have been like Instar. I think they have like six. I am not an expert, but I think they have like maybe like 8
Okay.
instars maybe. So they molt about 8 times before they become their adult form. And if I remember correctly, and I think that's not true for all spiders, but for I think a lot of spiders, they don't molt as adults. Um, and so I think they molted maybe twice before they were fully adult mature. And that was in September of 2023. The male died. When did he die? Maybe in October or November of 24.
Oh,
So he lived
okay.
about a year as mostly an adult. The female, who I bought at the same time, who was a similar age, she's still around.
Wow.
So she's definitely over a year old. But I think, yeah, which is kind of long for
A long time for a spider.
a spider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, other than a tarantula.
I mean,
Tarantulas live long lives.
yes, I was going to say tarantula world gets
20,
wacky.
like 12, 12 to 20, depending on species, I think. Females only, not males.
Oh my gosh. Yes. The females, yes, a lot of some of these female tarantulas can live like 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, you assume it's because their metabolism. They have low metabolism, they're barely moving, they're mostly resting. Gonna live a while on rest.
Yeah. It's just so cool. Oh, spiders. Amazing.
So I have a sketch. I went with the Napoleon Bonaparte pose that you may be familiar with.
I love this.
I believe is a Jacques-Louis David.
Yes.
I'm gonna take away my art history degree if I get that wrong. Hold on, let me double check. Yes, Jacques-Louis. He's going over the Alps. He's taken over. Knowing that he wasn't quite a hero, not quite a villain. Maybe Napoleon also sometimes categorizes as that, depending on where you fall on French history. So he's riding a fly, and I gave
Love
him
it.
kind of the carapace, is that the right word for
Yeah,
it, right?
their dorsal shield.
Yes, there. So he's got just kind of a head and chunk, and I tried to add a little bit of texture to show that he's a little velvety in parts because I liked the velvet mite so much. But he doesn't have like antenna or anything that I could see.
That's
So
correct. I was gonna say our arachnids do not have antennae.
yes, which means the tick is wrong. I was
Yes.
trying not
wrong.
not to be influenced by the tick, who's
The
just like a
tick.
big blue spandex
Yeah,
blob
he does
with
have
2
two
And they
antennae.
move.
antennae.
They're very articulated,
Yeah.
the tick's antennae.
He's clearly not a tick. What is he? We should do an
Maybe they're
episode where we try to track
pedipalps.
down. Oh, on his head?
I mean, pedipalps are anterior, but you expect
Yeah.
them to be
By the
maybe
face.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe I could give like a shoulder pedipalp, but like head feels wrong.
Oh, this sketch is so amazing.
And
I love it.
Amanda will fill it in with like color and everything later, but
yeah,
this
I'll
is
color it
just what she's
everything,
been
so,
doing while we've been chatting.
Oh my gosh. So, are
I
you
need to
looking for feedback, or are you just
Yes. Is there anything you feel like he needs to have to be a mite? Does he need to have a bigger shoulder? Do we need to make sure that he has like a very clear power set, or is he just a dude who rides around on a fly and that's his thing?
So we won't go deep into the biology, but in this species, because I don't fully understand it, but only females attach to flies.
Oh.
Ponytail, here we come.
Yes. So it's only females, which is, yay for the women.
Mhm.
The males are essentially just, the males don't do much. They give sperm and
Classic bug story.
eat.
The males don't do much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the females are the ones out here wrangling up the flies. The only other thing I'd maybe mention is, I wonder if do I have a picture that I could show you? So I was gonna say the only other thing that I would think about adjusting if you wanted is the addition of chelicerae.
Okay. I'm listening.
So
I'm listening.
maybe if so they use their chelicerae to latch on, and the chelicerae, at least in this species, they just look like crab claws. So she'd have like crab claw hands.
Ooh, love it.
That's what
Yeah.
she'd be using to hold on.
Okay. We can make this crabby. We can
Crab
crab
it
it
up.
up. Crab.
Yes.
The carcinization is underway.
Yes. Isn't that funny? Everything.
Everything is a crab.
Oh, that's kind of a hard. So I had a student, an undergrad, who was great at scanning electron microscopy, which generates those beautiful
Cool.
black and white three-dimensional images, like super up close. And so I have some of this mite attached to a fly, but she is hiding her mouth parts so well in everything.
How dare she?
I know.
Who does she think she is?
It's like that, and that was the whole reason why we did the project, because we kind of wanted to see, like, what are you doing in there? How are you
Right.
holding on? What are you up to in there? Let me do. I might be able to Google. Good old Google, just a basic. Just type in mite chelicerae and see in case you need a reference. Oh, I do like this. Okay, there's lots of images on this.
Oh wow.
Wow, look at
But I'm
those.
gonna
That's awesome.
They're almost jaw-like. They're like
That bottom left one is pretty crab-like.
Oh,
Look at that.
yes. And so again, like all species have like different forms of these chelicerae, depending on again their lifestyle and what they do, which is really cool.
Very, very cool looking.
But yes, that looks like the form of chelicerae that
That yours have.
at least the macrochelid mites have, and the ones that are phoretic, the ones that attach to the flies, she has
Wow.
chelicerae, just like these.
And you said you're in Florida, Emily? And these
Yes.
are native Floridians? These?
So that's a great question. I mean, when it comes down to it, so as far as I know, this species, Macrocheles musca domesticae, is found
Oh,
worldwide.
okay.
I mean, I think as long as there's humans, I mean, because they like living in dung, it's like essentially wherever humans have
So
gone
we don't
and
know the origin,
have
really.
domesticated. I don't
Huh.
know, and I could be wrong. So someone else, please contact any of us and let us know if you know for sure. But yeah, I don't know if we know the exact origin of this species of mite. But as far as I know, you can find them almost anywhere in the world. At least I think as long as there's humans or big animals pooping,
There they are.
they they they'd be there. As long as there are flies around, which gosh, I feel like flies probably
Which
live
we've also
everywhere.
moved
Well,
around
at
quite a
least
bit, I think.
yes, at least what's the term, like coprophilic
Coprophilic? Oh,
poop loving
yeah.
flies? Yeah. So
Caprophagous. They're eating it. Yeah.
yeah, coprophage eating. So as long as those flies are around, I would expect to find these mites.
What neat little guys and gals. Actually, what neat gals, because the guys aren't doing anything. So their ladies are cool.
I mean, the guys, I have not studied the guys much. It was something I'd always thought would be fun if I had more
Yeah.
time because they don't exhibit the behavior I was
None of them
interested in.
attached that's never been
Um,
seen. Wow.
mhm. And of course, when I was a student, a very well-known acarologist, Dr. Heather Proctor, I remember her telling me the males don't attach. And I thought, well, I want to see for myself. And I set up a bunch of
I would too. Yeah.
exposures. And I was like, yes. And I was like, okay, fine. I didn't see any males attached. Okay, I'll take that. The males don't attach. The males are interesting though. So reproduction in these mites is, let's see, where do I want to start?
Tell us everything.
It's got to be fast
Yeah.
because if you're living on a fly, you don't have time to hang around.
So males don't, well, let's see. So males actually seek out nymph females. So they're not even adults.
Whoa, the rating on this just jumped up.
I
How dare you.
know. I was going to say, so where do we start here? So the males actually, you can, I think I published did I publish a paper with mate guarding? So the
Oh, neat.
males, maybe, oh, I
They'll-
do. I
So
do.
they wait around for her to be ready?
Yes.
Oh,
And they
What is this, Hollywood?
grab onto her.
what
They
is this?
grab
Outside
the,
my high school?
yes, they grab onto the female and they just follow her around and mate guard her. And
Wow.
sometimes I would see like little conga lines of males. It looked like a
The
conga line. And
desperation.
at the front, yes, is a nymph female. She's so this species in particular has 3 protonymph, deutonymph. No, I think so. They have larva, protonymph, deutonymph. Oh gosh, I feel bad. It's been a while since I did my PhD.
That's okay.
But anyway, I think deutonymph is her last stage, and then she molts into an adult. And so the males find and seek out deutonymph females. So her last nymphal stage before she molts into her adult. And so as soon as she molts, they pass sperm to her.
What's the size difference then if he's attached to her? Is he smaller?
He's smaller. He is, but he's not, he's usually, I would say like 75,
Oh, okay.
80% of the size
So not
of
that much
her.
smaller.
So it's, yeah, no. And so he passes sperm to her. And there was a study done a while ago, years ago, that actually looked at the, I guess, like sperm competition or like why do males mate guard these not quite yet adult females? And it turns out the male that mates with her first sires, I think, or fathers nearly 100% of her offspring.
Oh, okay.
So
Mm.
you have to be
It
the
works.
first one to mate.
So she
Um,
carries that spermatophore
or
around, and that's it for her.
And
yeah.
uses it.
And it
That's
seems like that's what
that's
she
the
uses.
purse.
Yep, the first one gets it, and that's what she uses for the rest of her life.
That's so common in bugs
Mm.
And
in general.
yeah, yes. And so then, another just fun, cool story. So the female, she lays, so again, mites and ticks have all different strategies, but in this species, she lays one egg at a time. And she usually very carefully lays this egg and kind of hides it by putting other stuff around it, which is adorable. And these little larvae, so cool fun fact, mites and ticks, larval stage only has 6 legs.
Oh,
So
Mm.
they have 3 pairs of legs. And then as nymphs and adults, they have 8 pairs. So the larval stage of this species of mite to me just looks like a little clear jelly bean with little 6 little legs. And they're so
oh,
cute.
little jelly
And I
belly.
have actually, yes, I have seen, and I thought I was nuts because I was like, maybe I think the term is
Mhm.
anthropomorphize. I
We're
love
familiar with that
watching.
on this pod.
Yes, and it's like I love. I mean, I imagine all these mites. They all have their own little lives. They're busy doing stuff all the time, and so when I would look at them through the microscope, I would think I'd see things. But I swear, one time I saw a mama mite helping a baby out of its egg,
Ooh, very cool.
Oh,
and I thought, no way, she's probably just eating it. But I sat and watched it, and I did see like the little baby go off. Like she did not eat the baby. And I did find one other paper because I looked into it a little bit. So I was like, am I nuts? Am I just like too into these that I'm making this up? But I found one other paper where someone mentioned that they also thought they saw not this same species, but a
Mhm.
relative of this species of mite. Also, that they thought they saw mom helping baby hatch out of an egg, and that just made me
Aw.
love them even
Well, wolf
more
spider mothers
as
do that.
well.
The wolf spider mothers will,
Oh, do
yeah,
they?
when the hatchlings start making a ruckus in that egg sac, she'll begin to tear it open for them so they can get out. Yeah, they're great mommies.
Oh my gosh. So is it the actual, what's the term? Like the chorion, or is it
Um, I
um
don't know if it's the chorion or the
I don't
webbing
know,
outside of the chorion. It could be
webbing?
either.
Yeah, because as I say, I know a lot of spiders have like a web casing where they have their clutch.
But I think she
But
opens
I
the whole
wasn't sure
thing,
she's
and then they like
oh,
get up
okay, to
they
help them
get up on
out.
her, and then my favorite, the listeners have heard this before, but I love wolf spiders so much. The mother will walk over to a water source, like a puddle, and she'll put her two front limbs out, squat down, and they'll take turns coming down her leg to drink, and then go back up. Yeah,
That that's
right?
amazing. Have you
I
seen this
haven't. I've read it
yourself?
in papers. I want to see this. It's so cute.
Oh, I hope you see it
Thank you.
because
What a blessing
oh,
it would
what an
be. Yeah,
amazing thing.
so cool.
Yes. Well, and I have to say, there was one time as well. This is the one other thing, and there it is this amazing moment of I may be the only person to ever witness this because again, it's a creature that
Few
is
people
hard to
study.
see, and many people, yeah, people don't study and don't actually watch often. But one time, I think a female mite had died, and her Nathosoma had come off, which this is kind of
Oh,
common
it
in,
falls off.
our ecto, I guess so. Our ectoskeleton creatures. I think it's common to see like these chunks of their bodies that kind
dissipate
of come
off.
apart. Yeah, and so she had this. So she had her opistosoma, her large most of her body, but the little head part with the mouth parts had come off, and there's this big, beautiful hole. So I've seen a baby mite come out of that, but I've also seen she has her.
Wild. That's
Yes,
crazy.
yes, and she also has, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the exact structure, but essentially on her underside she has this trap door that opens up to lay the egg. And I saw one time another baby or another dead female mite and a baby mite come out of the trap door on this dead female, and it's like I'm sure she died with an egg inside of her that ended up developing
Wow.
and hatching inside of her. And
That's
so then baby came
amazing.
out of her. I know, it's just all these cool little things.
So many wild stuff
Oh,
happens on that tiny, tiny level, and most people miss it.
I know, it's like a whole different world. It's a whole different
it is.
plane of existence, it feels like. All right, so here's the edits I made. I added Pfeffer. And I gave her your haircut because that seemed fitting to me.
Yes.
So
Oh
now
my
you can
gosh,
ride
she's
the fly.
amazing. Oh, I
Uh,
love this so
She's so on the
much.
dog. Look at the schnauzer.
That is so perfect. Bringing it back around to the beginning where we chatted about pets.
The circle of life.
Yes.
So
Oh,
there you go.
amazing.
So,
Beautiful.
Amanda, out of 8 legs, how many would you
Out of 8
give
legs.
this mite in particular?
I mean, I feel like this is a sleeper agent here, the mite. It's like everywhere, doing things all the time, assumably helpfully. Because like we talk a lot about on this podcast about how like bugs are just sweeping away all the stuff that we don't want to deal with. You know, we
Absolutely.
would pile up in refuse without the bug. Dust mites, they're in my eyebrows, making my eyebrows look on fleek. I
Yes.
personally don't struggle with them in my skin. Sorry. I think I'm gonna give them a 7 out of 8. I'm gonna take one off because they feel so ubiquitous that I'm kind of like, all right,
Sure.
well, what's special about you then? You know? So I'll go 7. Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm gonna give him an 8. I learned so much about mites today,
I
and I'm
feel
so
like
pumped about them. 8, solid 8 out of 8 for me.
I don't know if you ask your guests
We
to
Yes,
rate
do.
as
yes.
well, but I'm
Yeah.
giving them an 8 out of an 8.
All
But
right.
that's not surprising because I've just
Your
learned so
mite
much.
bias.
Oh,
Yeah, my
yes,
bias.
because they are
Cool.
so goofy and fun and bizarre, and but also play just such huge roles in
Mhm.
nature. We need
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely.
All right.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Emily, thank you so much. So much. This was
Yeah, you've been
Thank
awesome.
you. This is like nothing makes me happier sometimes than just blabbing on about little creatures that I love looking at.
Yeah, I like it so much I made other
Oh,
people listen to me on a podcast. So
yeah. Oh, good for you. I mean, it's fun.
it's a good time.
well, thank you, Emily. You've been a dynamite guest. Oh, yes. Killed it. Oh,
Thank
yes.
you.
If you'd like to talk to Emily, how can we contact,
Yeah,
follow,
where are you on the
otherwise
socials,
stalk you,
Emily?
Emily? Where are you?
Oh my gosh. I am. So I do have a website, but you can't talk to me on there.
Oh,
How can you talk to me? So, one, you can send me an email. You can email me at edurkin, EDURKIN, at ut.edu. You can find me at the University of Tampa's website. However, I was going to say, I used to have a Twitter, but I don't know if I use that as much anymore.
Yeah,
yeah.
I started
we're
a
on Blue
Blue
Sky. Yeah.
Sky.
You want to
Yeah.
share your Blue Sky?
Yeah, I do have my. I don't remember who I am on Blue Sky.
We can always, yeah, we'll put them in the show notes if we need to.
Can you? Yeah, because I was gonna say I recently got a Blue Sky because I was like,
We need to jump ship here.
yes,
And you need to share mite photos with the entire world. So you got to have somewhere to do
The
that.
entire world needs to know.
yes. Let's see. Oh, here. Let's see. That's me. Yeah. My profile. Oh, it's Mighty Emily. So MITEY and then letter M, letter L, letter E .bsky.social.
I have followed you, so we're good.
Thank you. Excellent. I was going to say, I've been thinking, I'm going to have to make the transition. I'm going to have to make an announcement on Twitter, like,
Bye.
going elsewhere. Yes, goodbye.
All right. Well, if you want to come talk to us, we are, of course, on Blue Sky, on Reddit, on Instagram, on Facebook, all the usual places. And we'd love to talk to you about mites, about spiders, about anything, really. About cats. Show us your cat pictures always, and your dog pictures, or your bird pictures.
Show us
Whatever
your
pet
pets. We
strikes
love
your
pet
fancy.
photos.
Show us your pets. Show us your animals. Show your charismatic megafauna. All right. So we love you, and goodbye. Bugs Need Heroes was created by Derek Conrad and Kelly Zimmerman. Hosted by Amanda Niday and Kelly Zimmerman. Bugs Need Heroes is produced and edited by Derek Conrad, with some assistance from Chelsea Bodden and a few cats. Character art is by Amanda Niday. Our music is Ladybug Castle by Roll Music. Got a bug question? Email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. Check us out at bugsneedheroes.com, and most of the socials are under Bugs Need Heroes. Thanks for stopping by. This is where the outro music is.